Hello, and welcome to the Conscious Communion podcast, where we traverse through the inner dwellings of the human experience through conversation. I'm your host, Danae. Join me as we explore the interconnection of creativity and community. Rachel Silva is a visual artist working and living in LA. She has a focus on painting and illustration, but loves to go where creativity leads, which can at times leads towards an explorative path of new mediums and adventures. She loves to travel and is in love with the concept of human existence and emotion, often using her work as a form of expression for her own human experience. She continues to create new work as she digests life in new ways. I first learned about Rachel's work from my husband and instantly became a huge fan. She uses vibrant colors that satiate the mind and captivate my soul. Here is Rachel Silva.
Hi.
Hello. So grateful to have you on.
Thanks for having me.
Of course. Yeah. Your work, specifically the colors that you use, totally have my soul and my eyes and my mind and heart just like satiating for more. Like
Thank
that
you.
painting that you have behind you. You did that. Yes.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Love it.
Yeah, that was a little one. Thanks. I love that the use of that word satiating, because I always think of the colors as being very tasty. So
they are. They're yummy. They're delicious. Yeah, that's exactly how I feel. Yeah. So your work specifically, like where did your creativity, like where did that interest like begin? Sorry.
I honestly, my whole life, I found out recently on a visit to my parents, I held a pencil like the right way before I was a year old. My mom has paint, like a butterfly painting I did, and I was like 6 months, I've gotten better, but yeah, it's just always been something that's there. And I was really lucky to have parents that really cultivated that and encouraged me to just always draw and paint.
Yay, mom and dad. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really helpful. I think when you're a child and you can have that play be expressed through creativity, it's really important, right? Like
it is. Yeah. That was like, I mean, I had other interests and stuff, of course, because we all do, but that was always the main thing. And I think there's never anything else I was really drawn toward. So it's just been image crafting my whole life.
That's amazing. And you mentioned before we began that you grew up in Santa Cruz, and I'm sure that probably played a massive role, just having nature as.
Yeah, I didn't grow up in Santa Cruz, actually.
Oh, you didn't? Oh, yeah. Okay.
I grew up a couple different places. So I was born in Florida, and when I was about a year old, my parents moved us to Memphis, like rural Memphis, Tennessee, a little town called Eads. And then they had my sister. So I grew up there for a little bit. And then we actually moved to Zurich, Switzerland. And we lived there for about 3.5 years. Then we moved to Northern California, where I was in San Jose. And Santa Cruz is about 45 minutes west. And I grew up going there a lot, but not in Santa Cruz. And then after college, my husband and I moved to Santa Cruz, and then we went to LA. So it's been a lot. It's been a lot.
That sounds like a lot, especially to live in Switzerland. Like what an experience. But it sounds like you were living in places that have that nature ingrained in the culture. Yeah.
Yeah.
Did that inspire you? As
so
I would imagine so. Yeah.
So much. I always outside, especially with my sister when we were kids. Like we were always outside. My mom would have to yell at us to come inside once it got dark. We did not want to be indoors much. Nature's definitely a big influence. It's also a place where I consistently go to find peace and recenter myself.
I love that. Yeah, I mean, so much of your work you have at least some image where it's like integrating the nature aspect. And I appreciate that so much. And I would love to share with the podcast some obviously pictures of your work so that people can actually get a taste. But the way that you depict it is so realistic. And how has that process been for you? Like, have you always, and is it oil that you're painting with, or what mediums are you using?
Lately, I've been using a lot of oil paint, but I've used they're oil-based colored pencils for a really long time. So there are two main, I mean, three if you count water soluble, but two like main dry colored pencils. There's a wax binder or an oil binder. And the ones I use have an oil binder, and I find that they blend a lot nicer. They have a lot better light fastness. But I'm veering away from those a little bit. I picked up oil paints and I'm really loving them right now. So I'm going to dive more into oil paints in the coming days.
I love that. Is that the most recent painting that you just did? Was that an oil? That was incredible. Yeah. That was an incredible piece.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, of course. And go ahead. What were you going to say?
I was going to say, okay. So much faster than the colored pencils, which is a big deal for me because the colored pencils were so slow. I just wasn't getting ideas out fast enough. So that's the thing I'm most excited about with oils is how much faster they are.
Yeah, to get ideas out, especially if they're coming to you, right? Like,
yeah.
I'm sure creativity blocks come at some point, but if they're coming, it's like you got to get out of the way and just do it.
Yes. Yeah. Yes, exactly.
So what is your creative process like? Like when you're in a good creative flow, what does that kind of dance look like for you?
I'm usually listening to music. Music is integral to my work. I love music so much. I'll just lay on the floor and listen to music, and that'll be my activity.
I do that too.
Yeah. It feels very old school. I don't need to look at anything. I just want to hear. But yeah, I'm usually listening to music. I get a lot of inspiration when I'm driving, when I'm behind the wheel. I love road trips, and I think that's why if I can be blasting music and driving down the highway, that's my happy place. So a lot of ideas come there, and then I carve out time to actually sit and produce them. And that is also very musical time as well. I will come up with playlists for bodies of work. I think, did I answer your question?
That's awesome. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's great. I think music is being able to create alongside a frequency there's nothing like it. Yeah. And so what kind of music inspires you? I'm sure it's kind of like a little bit of everything, and you probably get new flavors when you're doing new paintings, but curious to see what the range is.
I think the main genres that I love is folk. I love folk music. I find it very emotionally activating. I love electronic music, but kind of like that's such a broad term. There's so many types of electronic music, but like Purity Ring or Men I Trust, that very like groovy, bassy with this ethereal voice, that gets me. I love.
I'm with you on that.
Yes.
Yep. Right there with you.
Lana Del Rey is a huge, huge influence. I love her. But I also grew up listening to metal and punk. So that has a lot of influence as well. Very loud, abrasive, in your face sort of stuff. I love psychedelic music. That is I think probably the most obvious influence on my work.
Definitely. Yeah. Those colors, they're just they really are like a trip. It's almost like you're getting like a dose of psychedelic reality in those colors. It's so, yeah, of course. You're killing it with the goal. The goal is achieved. It's right when I saw your work, my husband sent it to me and he was like, I feel like you'll like this. And I was like, oh my gosh, these colors. It's like the palette that you use. How would you describe the palette, and where did that inspiration come from? Because it is so unique, I'd say. I don't necessarily see that in a lot of other bodies of work.
It is extremely saturated. I wrote a note down. I think I categorized it as like psychedelic vaporwave or something. Um, it's neon lighting, intense, really bright colors. I don't really use anything straight out of the tube, but I'm not dulling any colors usually. Like if I can get the darkest dark I need without dulling anything, I will do that. Same with the lightest lights. Um, yeah, they feel very satisfying to me. And I think I gravitate toward the bright colors like that because I'm trying so often with my work to capture this like momentary feeling. Like I'm trying to capture these really intense moments of emotion and pin them down. And I think the bright colors are the best way to express those feelings that I'm most inspired to capture.
I love that. That's such a beautiful depiction of like captivating the moment. And it's funny. Last night when I was painting my nails, I was like, I'm going to go with this color because you use this color. And I was looking at your newest painting and I was like, that feels right. Like it is satiating. It's when you get to find a color that you're actually getting some like visceral reaction from. Feels good.
It does. It does really feel good. I've often talked about the pink and blue are the main ones that I always go back to. They just feel like home. And like the best way to describe it, to bring it back to music, is like they feel kind of like when a song you love wraps up and it ends on that perfect note and you're like, that was great. I loved that. That's what the colors feel like to me. It doesn't feel like there's anything missing when I use those two.
I love that. That's a great way to put it. And now that I think about it, just thinking about the paintings that I've seen, I do notice that blue and pink, and they're such joyous colors. They really are, especially together. So I in a lot of your paintings, I'm just sensing so much joy and so much like vibrancy. And there was one painting I really wanted to talk to you about that I'm very curious about. I know that it's being shown right now, Fallen Fruit.
Oh, okay.
And the idea behind that and all of that. I'm really curious about that. If you could share what the painting looks like and where it kind of originates from, just to maybe give the visual for whoever's listening.
So it is a 20-inch round on wood. It is like a Rorschach image of a woman surrounded by flowers. And there's a negative colors, kind of like a camera negative, down the center and across her eyes in the shape of a cross. And she's called Fallen Fruit. And that piece took me a very long time. And it went through long periods of me leaving it and letting it be and not really knowing what it was going to be about. I knew that I wanted it to be from this shoot I did with my friend with lilies and hydrangeas and all these lush flowers. And I've always had a thing for the Rorschach imagery. But the cross aspect did not come into play until very late in the game. I took the reference photos in 2018. I drew the line drawing in 2020, and I didn't finish the full colored pencil like to completion until 2022. So it went through a very long path. A lot of times when I'm working on my pieces, I don't quite know what the meaning is as I'm doing it. The idea comes to me, the emotion comes to me, and the image unfolds. But it's usually through the process of creating it that I realize what I'm trying to get out, what I'm trying to express. And I find that fascinating. It's kind of like my subconscious is going ahead of me, and I'm kind of along for the ride. I'm like, oh, I guess I was really feeling this. But this piece is about women being supportive of other women who choose to leave the dogma of a church, whether that's Christianity, Judaism, anything. Any woman deciding, you know what, this isn't working for me, and I need to step away from organized religion in any fashion. And And that's something that has been a lifelong journey for me. I grew up in the church, with my mom, and, it's been a very long, slow journey of me realizing like why that never really worked for me, why I never really felt connected to it, and finding solace and community with other women who have been through the same thing or have been told the same things. And so that was the inspiration for this piece.
I was thinking that's at least what I was feeling when I was seeing it. I was trying to just take it in and have my own experience with it. And I had a similar experience where I left the church, and
I listened to your first episode, and I thought that I was like, oh, we have something in common.
Yeah. So just that whole concept of leaving the church and then having women supporting you.
Yeah.
Who potentially are still at the church or whatever it may be.
Yeah.
You know, and sometimes it's the case, sometimes it's not. And it's a process that you kind of just have to navigate.
It is.
And I'm sure it's been one with you and your mom, right?
Yes, very much. Very much. It used to be something I didn't like to talk about with her, but now we talk very openly about it. And, you know, she's going through her own journey, and it's nice we've really connected over in the last year or two. And that's been really healing, actually, to talk to her openly about it and have her support, and for her to have my support. It's beautiful.
That is beautiful. It's a rarity. I mean, really.
It is a rarity.
To be a support for your mom like that. Like that's not that you couldn't be in any other way, but in that kind of capacity when you were raised in the church.
Yeah.
And then to have that paradigm shift and just you be a support to your mom in that way, however that may be, because spirituality and your own practice with it can evolve at all times.
Oh, always.
And I think it should.
It should. And that's why I brag about my mom all the time. I'm so proud of her that she never, you know, she raised me in the church, and I have my baggage with organized Christianity, but you know, she never stopped questioning or searching herself. You know, I won't touch on her faith at all because that's her story, but I really respect how she's not and never has been a simple like, well, this is what we're supposed to do, so we're going to do it. She's always looking for love and kindness and guiding me and my sister in the way that she knows best. And I really respect that. And yeah, being able to talk openly about my distancing from church has been very healing. Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, it sure is. And thank you for that painting, just as a beautiful depiction of that experience. You know, I think so many of us have experienced it. There's so many people that have left the church and organized religion entirely. It doesn't matter what type of church, you know.
It branches even out. Even if you didn't grow up with it, some of the ideas they get out there, and especially I think toward women, you know. And that's
totally,
especially with it, you know, women and the concept of virginity. That's something that means a lot to me, and it also inspires a lot of my work. That doesn't just stay within the church; like that is pervasive in the culture. So the influence goes far.
I love that. Yeah. I mean, even some of like your like naughty, I love those paintings because they're provocative. They make you feel something and they're sexy. And it's like, there's nothing wrong with expressing that part of yourself.
There's really not. And I thought there was for a long time. And, you know, I can't really pinpoint any one person, but I just can't help but feeling that growing up in the church and trying to go to youth groups, you know, this idea of being a virgin or proper or modest gets so attached to your worth as a woman, so attached, sometimes blatantly so. And so it's been an everlasting rebellion against that.
Totally.
Yeah.
I'm with you. I'm right there with you. No, and almost it goes so much deeper than that, because even in just expressing yourself sexually, however that may be, like
Mm-hmm.
in your own personal life, behind closed doors, or with a partner,
Mm-hmm.
it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
It's still, there's that deconstruction that has to
It gets in
happen.
there. It gets in there, and it takes a lot of work to undo stuff like that. And I feel
So
like
what
I've undone a lot in doing these provocative pieces of artwork.
I was going to ask if that has helped deconstruct those patterns,
It
and
really has.
almost like rebuilding it, right?
Yeah.
Like you get to reclaim it.
Yeah. Yeah, really. There was a piece I did in one of my journals. Um, oh, what did I call it? Oh no, I can't remember now. There's an upshot of my butt. And I put an upside down cross, and that was like a big moment for me. And I can't even remember what I called it, but that was a big one for me, where I was like, oh, I'm like crossing a boundary that I've had for a long time, and I'm taking a risk, and I love taking risks in my artwork. But that was one of the first times I felt like I was taking a very like personal risk. And ever since I did that piece, and like I showed it to my friends, and I eventually posted it online. But I was very nervous too at first. But yeah, that was a landmark one, where I was like, I feel like I'm doing some like self-healing. I'm doing some rebuilding of neural pathways here.
All about that. All about the rebuilding of neural pathways and trying to create a new paradigm. So it sounds like your art is I would imagine it is a massive part of that rewiring process.
Yeah, it's how
So,
I process things too. Yeah.
that's beautiful. Yeah. So what does that look like for you to process your pain, to process your human experience through painting?
I mean, it's as simple as like, even if something painful happens, I can quite literally make something beautiful out of it. It might not feel beautiful, but I can, the idea and the knowledge that I can take a painful feeling or a hardship that I'm going through and actually have that turn into something beautiful to look at and fun to create it I don't know, like it kind of leaves me a little speechless. It feels like a superpower sometimes. And to the point now where my husband, if I'm going through a hard time or if something scary happens, he'll even look at me and say like, this sucks, but think of the art you're going to make. Like something beautiful will come out of this, even if it's just a painting. So that, I think that part alone is a huge help in processing emotions, especially hard ones. And then actually, when I'm actually doing the act of painting, I have to sit with that emotion and I have to think about it, and I analyze it. I'm very analytical. So I'm never one to shy away from what I'm feeling. I feel everything very intentionally and fully.
As you should. Yeah. I know it's not easy, and I do the same. So I'm sure, and well done on your husband. I just have to say.
Thanks. Yeah, he's a good one.
Yeah. Yeah. For him to say that and to reiterate that it's going to be okay. And
Yeah.
because we know, with just looking at nature and just even with the creative process alone, right? There's always an ebb and flow to that process.
Oh, always.
So
yes,
it's ever present.
Yeah. Yeah. I used to have a really hard time with that.
How has that shifted for you?
I love the flow now. I am all about the flow. I used to be, and I say used to like I'm so far. No, I still have a hard time with this sometimes, but in general, I love the flow. But I used to have a much, much harder time during those ebbs when I'm going through a creative block, or maybe my mental health is in a really bad place. So I just don't have the energy to paint or draw or anything. and just getting really down on myself and feeling really guilty if I wasn't being productive, which I think is also, you know, a capitalist thing. To
Definitely. Sure is.
But I think a lot of artists, you know, we feel that, you know, if we're not making art, then how can I call myself an artist? And I don't subscribe to that anymore. The way I see the world is through the eyes of an artist. I'm an artist full time. I don't need to be painting or drawing every day to be an artist. And since I've been, you know, really ingesting that, I've learned to just love the flow. And now my downtime feels like downtime. I'm getting rest, which is essential. Just accepting that and going with the flow has led to more happiness and honestly more productivity. If I'm not wasting time feeling guilty, I'm going to have more energy to actually paint.
Totally. It's all that, it comes back to the frequency aspect, right? It's like, what are we ingesting and digesting so that we can make more space for what needs to come through? Because it sounds like your process is very much a dance with the divine, where you're just letting spirit or whatever that creative force wants to come through you. You're just really at the whim of that, right? That's what it sounds like.
Very much. I can be pretty impulsive. I don't know. I just like, that's what feels best, is to just be at the whim of that creative spirit. And I find I'm happiest when I concede to it, when I let myself play and be creative in the moment that I'm feeling that way. You know, if I have a desire to do something that feels creatively charged, you know, if there's time and it's not harmful or, you know, destructive to my own life, then go for it.
Yeah, totally. And if anything, you're liberating yourself, like you're setting yourself free.
That's
you're allowing.
Number one important thing to me is freedom. It always comes back to freedom, literal and figurative. Like I love just being free. That is always what I'm striving for.
I couldn't agree more. I think that is the ultimate path for us all to find whatever creative expression wants to move through us, because I believe at the end of the day, all of us are artists in some way.
Oh yeah. Everyone's born with that artistic eye. Kids draw. No one needs to teach a kid how to draw. You know, kids just start doing it. They just start creating. We're all creators.
Yeah, it's innate. It's within us. It's been almost stripped away due to capitalism.
Yes.
Let's just bring it back, because the school systems, and I mean, it's pretty much like a small prison. Yeah. You're just being
big time.
Oh,
yeah,
totally.
Yeah.
I do too. I mean, I actually went to school to be a teacher.
Oh, really?
And I did. And yeah, I was an early education teacher for a little bit, and it was great. It was beautiful.
What age?
Oh, it was like preschool. That's why it was so amazing. I went to such, and the school that I was teaching at, it was very holistic. It was like, let them go, play in the dirt, we're planting seeds, you know, and it was really incredible. However, teachers do not make enough money to actually make a living.
No, not at all.
So kind of now I'm just working in a world of tech, which is weird because it's not necessarily like my passion.
Right.
One day I'll be my own boss, but the time is not now.
Yeah. And it also can come and go. You know, I'm my own boss right now, but I don't anticipate I will be forever, you know, but it'll come back.
I mean, you might be.
Maybe.
I think your work is really incredible. And I just wouldn't be surprised if you were your own boss for the rest of your life.
That'd be great. Thanks.
Yeah, of course. I just, you know, and I think with the work that you're doing, and if you continuously like bring it back to like maybe where that thing is coming from, like with Fallen Fruit. It has such a beautiful subject matter. If you're bringing that in, like, you have so much to say.
I do
think
I have so much to say. I'm glad people actually want to hear it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think, even if no one saw any of the stuff, I'd still be making it. So it really touches me when it does make an impression on other people.
Definitely. It's like something you need to be doing, but but if you can share the expression and also help liberate others along the way,
that's my
why
favorite.
The fuck not?
That is my favorite sort of feedback to get. Anytime I get a message on Instagram of someone saying like, "Oh, this artwork encouraged me to, like I am sexy," or I should pick up the paints or whatever. Those are my favorite things to hear.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, like your saucy little paintings, they like made me feel some kind of way, and I was like, "Oh, I want to like go be naughty like that." That's fun. I like that. I want to try that on.
Someone asked me recently, because I made a zine, like modeled after an old school smut mag. And someone asked me how discreet my packaging was. And I was like, oh, it's discreet.
Trying to be naughty, trying to be secretive. Yeah, absolutely. Oh, that's so good. It's, to be able to incorporate those themes that often make people feel uncomfortable. I think that's where so much of the play can come in. And you mentioned play, and
it is
what a portal.
Yeah, I like, I really love walking that line between the masculine and the feminine gaze. I think obviously my work has a very feminine gaze because I am identify as a woman. But I love, I cannot deny that I do love some of that masculine gaze. And I like to bring that in and mix it in a healthy way. And like, how can I view this through my own female lens and take the parts that are empowering and mix that in with the female gaze? And that's where I have the most fun personally. And I'm glad that it is resonating with some people.
It is. Yeah, definitely. I hope that more people get to see your work and that your platform can just be exposed more. And if that means, yeah, of course, I think that part of the hope for this podcast is to also connect other creatives. So I know folks in LA, so it's like, I don't know what that means, but if that means connecting people that don't know each other yet, that are also creating and doing incredible things to help activate like our voices so that we can break out of the paradigms of like capitalism and just be our own bosses, all for that.
Yeah. It's all about community. Rising tide floats all boats, man. I really subscribe to that. I feel very strongly about that.
Do you have a community that you feel close to in LA?
I have a couple. So
that's amazing.
I worked in animation for a little bit, and that's actually what I went to school for with my husband. So we have a big network in the animation industry in LA, and they're just the best people. They're so great. They're, oh gosh, just like the most supportive group of artists you'll ever meet. Like everyone watches each other's back. Everyone's there to help each other improve. That's wonderful. That's probably my biggest community. But I'm making more friends in the fine art world, and it's amazing, especially to make new friends as an adult. That can be really, really hard. But I've connected with some wonderful artists that are on a more similar path to me than the animation world, which is really nice because it can be really solitary. I'm just in my studio all day doing my own thing. It's not a teamwork thing to make your paintings. So it's really, I think it can be difficult to find community in that way, and find people that you genuinely connect with. And I've been really lucky to find some people in LA.
That's not an easy feat.
It is not.
It's not. LA is a big city. It's huge. It's massive. I'm so glad to hear that you love LA. It's
Gosh, no.
LA. I have had to come back around to LA. I think because I'm born and raised and my whole family, like we're generations back, you know, like my grandma grew up in LA.
That's really
So,
cool.
Yeah, it's pretty special. It's San Gabriel Valley Mountains are like, that's my parents live in Monrovia. So I'm not sure if you know where that is, but it's like in Pasadena area. Yeah.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Absolutely. So it's, you know, but for an artist, I would imagine, and I'm curious if it does the two worlds you mentioned the divine feminine and the masculine and how those two worlds meet. Does LA bring up something in you with just all of the energies that are kind of at play? Does living in that city kind of like invigorate you in some way because of all of the polarities that are in LA specifically?
I think it definitely does. Everywhere I've lived has influenced me in a different way. And LA is where I started doing the erotic work. I think LA is very, it's a very sexually charged place. But I think it's also just so like the art community here is my favorite that I've experienced anyway. It is so grassroots and like people are really willing to work hard, but still sleep in till 10, you know, take a smoke break, go to the beach, but I'm going to get my paintings done, you know, and that I really connect with that about LA. I think it gets I don't know, I'm rambling now, but I think it can get a rap for being like really, really, really hardworking. And I think it can be. And of course that depends on what industry you're in, but I really love the culture of balance and relaxation alongside hard work that you find in LA that has a really unique vibe to it. It had to grow.
That's amazing.
I didn't necessarily want to move here at first. It was a goal because of the art scene, but I'm such a Northern California girl. I was like, no, my trees, I can't leave them, you know? But you know, being down here for a while now, like I have so fallen in love with it. I love this city.
I'm so glad to hear that. I love, it's so funny to hear you say that. And I feel like that's like salve for me. It's healing for me to hear you say that there's balance because it's not what I experienced. And it doesn't mean that it's not present.
Right.
Do you know what I'm saying? Like just to hear you say that that's what you found in a city that wasn't that for me means that it's still there. Just because it wasn't my experience doesn't mean it's not present.
Yeah. Everyone's experience is going to be different. And it, of course, it depends where you're working. Like the film industry, I can't imagine. That's got to be intense.
Some kind of intense. Yes, definitely.
I'm okay to just be an enjoyer.
Yes, definitely. Yeah. And I think it's just, you know, it is a beautiful city with
it has a lot
many different, that's what gets me.
Yeah.
It just the history and old Hollywood, and it's fun to think about. It's fun to think about how much it's grown.
Yeah. It's also
a melting pot.
It's just a fun city, you know? There's always something going on. In Santa Cruz, I had a bucket list of stuff I wanted to do before we moved. And I was actually able to pretty much hit that bucket list. And once we got to LA, I was like, that's impossible. I will never complete any list here. You know, yeah,
it's endless.
It is endless. Yeah. And I love that. It feels like there's always going to be something.
You said you like to travel. So have you taken yourself on some fun escapades to help yourself?
Yes, I love doing a solo trip. I love traveling alone every once in a while.
I love that.
Yeah. It started with like little road trips, and last year I went to Paris alone on a whim. And that was one of the best trips of my life. That was incredible. I get a little stir crazy sometimes, and then I'm like, get me in a car, get me on a plane. I got to get out. I got to see somewhere new. And I loved going alone because it, you know, I don't know. I love solitude. I love alone time. I like being with my own thoughts. So being in a new place by myself is really creatively, it makes me very creatively charged. And it makes me feel very capable. I used to have really bad anxiety. Like I could not drive on freeways. I would have panic attacks. And now I go on road trips and fly to other countries alone. And I look back at the Rachel I was, and she's like, how the fuck are you doing that? But yeah, it makes me feel very empowered and very strong. And I love that feeling.
Talk about freedom.
Yeah.
That is,
yeah.
You've found your freedom in that. That's really, you've liberated yourself from a past version of you.
Yeah.
To just this whole nother version. That's incredible.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that process. Like when I told you, like, I was trying to figure out like what drives me. And I'm like, I just really love the concept of existence. Like we're always changing. And like the longer I live, the more I'm like, I've been so many versions of myself, and that's really cool. And then to bring it back to the moths that we were talking about before we started, that was, yeah, the butterflies behind you. You know, I love them.
Over there.
You know, we're always going through a metamorphosis. And I mean, you know, maybe that sounds cliche, but it's cliche for a reason. It is truth. We are always going through a metamorphosis, and it's not always pretty.
No. To give people context, I would love for you to share about your process, the moth process.
The moth adventure was last year. I love bugs, just to start out with. I think they're really cool. And my husband's mom had raised silk moths every year because she was a kindergarten teacher for a long time. And so I knew about them. I had seen them at her house like years in the past. And I was just kind of feeling like, you know, I feel like some sort of change coming on, you know, the lockdown part of pandemic anyway is over. We're all kind of leaving the house again. And then, you know, I had a shot of tequila and ordered 200 silk moth eggs online.
Love it.
And my husband was like, you know, that's a lot. Yeah, you know, I'm going to give some away. I'm not going to raise all 200. It'll be fine. So I gave what looked like half to his mom, because I know she likes to do that. And then also when they delivered them to me on their little Petri dish, it said, you know, we sent you extra because there's a reduced hatch rate right now. So I was like, see, look, they're not even all going to hatch. There's going to be 50 tops, which is still a lot, which is still maybe too many. But I wound up still even giving away half of them, decreased hatch rate, whatever. I still wound up with like 250 moths.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. It was wild. And I've never been one to like really talk to the camera on Instagram. But there's this filter that I just think is hilarious. And it got away from me. And then it became this really fun thing. And I was doing these moth updates and just sharing my whole experience of like, I've never raised bugs before. This is my very first time raising any sort of bug. And watching them change and witnessing everything for the first time and getting out of hand. It was wild, and it was so much fun, and it was so cool to watch them, and they're so cute. And yeah, I kept all of the stories on my highlights. So if you follow me on Instagram, you can watch the whole thing unfold there. But it was a lot of fun, and I do plan on doing it again with far less moths. You know, like maybe 20. Yeah.
20 sounds like a good amount. I feel like that's what my husband did, because I was like, don't go crazy. We already have beetles in the closet. Try to take it down a notch. Like,
what kind of moth eggs did you order?
I'm not sure what he ordered. I know that they look like an atlas moth, but they're not an atlas moth. So we're going to create like a little den, a moth den. He's very excited. I loved the houses that you created and everything. It just, the whole, and I'm sure the whole process, I'm curious if that helped in your creative process and just did it? Okay.
It really did. It really did. It like changed something in me a little bit to watch these weird little things just do what they were doing their purpose. And then they made these cocoons and then they hatched out of the cocoons. And I was expecting like the silkworms themselves are very soft. They're not slimy. They're very cute to hold. I think they're cute. A lot of people think they're freaky. I think they're cute.
I think they're cute too.
They're so cute. And then the moths are so cute. They look like bunnies with wings. And I was expecting it to be dry and they come out of the cocoon and then they're a cute moth, but it's messy. It is messy. And, they release this acid that dissolves one end of the cocoon and then they come out and then they still have fluid and they have to expel that fluid and their wings aren't unfurled yet and they need time to unfurl their wings. And when I saw that, I was like, of course this wasn't going to be a clean process. And then, you can relate that back to yourself. When you go through changes and you're going through a metamorphosis, it's not going to be like this consistent upwards trend of improvement. There's going to be some messiness. You may not like yourself during the process. There's going to be ups and downs, but in the end, you still come out looking like a cute fuzzy bunny with wings. So it can be really nice. It can be encouraging.
Yeah. I mean, it sounds like you've gone through many versions of yourself, which I think we all should, right? Like it's fun to wear many hats and to try new faces on.
Yeah. And to decide, I feel like, when you're growing up, you're kind of trying to figure out who you are and everything. And I don't think that ever really stops. I think there are some aspects about ourselves that lock into place, like freedom is important to me. That will probably always be important to me, but it might look different 10 years from now. Right now, it looks like solo trips and doing what I want with my time, etc. But that could look different in the future, but that doesn't mean that's not still a quality that is going to be really important to me. So I think it's also about like watching how you change and being okay with changing, being okay with what's important to you changing. You don't have to be rigid and locked into the one person that you decided on at 20.
It's such a good word. Yeah, I think it's important especially as a creative, right? Because if you're getting out of the way and you're letting source just do what it wants to do, you have to be okay with change.
Yeah.
That's inevitable.
Yeah. And it's exciting. I love change.
I do too. I'm right there with you. I think, and you mentioned that previously, it was like the flow was hard and I'm falling further into flow and it is, damn, does it feel good. That in itself is so liberating.
Yeah.
To just let yourself rest.
Yeah.
Without shaming yourself. Yeah. What a gift.
It's still hard. I still have days when I'm like, you should be painting, but then I just try and remember, just because I'm not painting today doesn't mean I'm not painting tomorrow, the day after. You just got to trust future me is going to do what she's going to do.
Mm-hmm. Totally. And that in itself is an expression. Like that feeling of just feeling that aggravation or that frustration, man, I really should be creating. That in itself is an aspect of creation.
Yeah.
And I feel like nature is the best guide for us to see that it's all okay.
Yeah.
We're totally okay in each and every season that we process.
Oh yeah. The seasons are so important. There's a season to creating too. You got to hibernate sometimes. You have to ingest before you can, produce artwork. Yeah, I'm always trying to get more in touch with like the literal seasons. I slow down in the winter and I speed up in the summer. And, You know, I try to be a little easier on myself in the wintertime if I'm not as productive, because I know springtime and summer, that's when I thrive. So if
Go time.
if I force myself to over the winter, I might be too tired by the spring, you know?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Totally. I feel that 100%. And I think especially with LA actually getting a proper winter, you're really, I'm sure I'm a little envious. I'm like, all right, where was the rain when I was living there? That's one of the reasons why we moved. There was no rain. Little envious because I know how gorgeous the mountains must be.
You know, I
I'm
was
sure.
a springtime person until I moved to LA. It is my favorite season now. Spring in LA is breathtaking. It's gorgeous.
Truly.
It's underrated.
Those billowy clouds and then the sky when it's just so crisp and blue and
at like all the grass gets shockingly green for like a month.
mm-hmm,
Yeah.
mm-hmm. Well, that blue, that color that the sky often brings on, that beautiful hue, is often what I see in your paintings. It's that crisp, beautiful blue.
Yeah.
And it's just, yeah, I can't help but go back to your palettes and how mesmerizing those colors are and how vibrant they are, and just your essence, that is like who you are. Just talking to you and getting a feel of you, and your work really is just a representation of your essence, and I love that.
So much.
Of course, of course. Yeah, I would love for you to tell people where they can find you via Instagram and all the other places.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm on Instagram as at Miss Rachel Silva, MissRachelSilva. I have a website, rachelimsilva.com. Those are pretty much the two places. I'm not on much other social media. I do have a TikTok, but I don't know about TikTok.
I'm right there with you. I had one, I deleted it. I'm like, oh, I'm not doing that.
I'm on there.
Just one more thing to
Yeah.
What did you say? Sorry. I feel like
I'm on there occasionally, but not in a reliable way.
Okay, perfect. Well, I'm so grateful and thankful. Thank you for taking the time.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for, of course, it's been an honor. It's been such a pleasure to talk with you and get to know you and your story a little bit more.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. I hope you have a great rest of your day.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.
Hey there, it's Danae again. Just wanted to say thank you for sharing your time and energy with me. If this podcast resonates, please like, subscribe, follow, and share if you're willing. Reviews help too, so if you're feeling the vibe, please leave a review where you can. Sending all the love. Peace.